You are now tuned in to the Security Guard channel and Security Guard Radio with your host, Atypical Security Guard. It's time to set the standard, bridge the gap, and be great.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you from the Security Guard channel and bringing you today's Security Guard radio broadcast. Listen, as always, I want to thank you guys for being a part of what we're doing here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, your effort, everything that you guys are doing, not just here on this channel. We're creating a community, guys. Not sure if you've noticed this. We're getting great interaction on our community feed. We're helping each other. People are sharing their information. They're sharing their viewpoints. This is exactly why I set out to create this channel. And I'm so happy that so many of you are becoming regulars here. And I would like it if you would help bring other guards into the fold. So if you're getting any benefit from the information that we're uploading, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Tell other people about what we're doing here because, guys, we have a movement and it is growing. It's not my movement, it's our movement. So let's get right into it today, guys. Listen, we have to talk about the horrible tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas last week. Listen, I made a video the other day, pretty impassioned, pretty upsetting, thinking about the potential loss of my own kid's life and thinking about the 19 children who did lose their life, the 2 teachers, and the countless people that are suffering across the country at the hands of this violence and this repeated cycle of school shootings and mass shootings and how that affects everything, including what we're doing here, guys. So today I want to talk about solutions. We've talked about the problem. We've given our thoughts on what it is that leads people to do these kind of things and what it is that makes people, kind of be numb to what's going on around us right now. Many of us in the 2A community, the security guard community, we're aware of what's going on. We're aware of a lot of the things that are leading to this and kind of maybe where the country's headed. But today I want to talk about solutions. I want to talk about 5 things that I think schools could do right now to help harden that target. Unfortunately, left-leaning politicians and people who vote for left-leaning politicians have made schools a very soft target. Guys, how can we change that? What can we do? Well, before I get into my top 5 list, guys, listen, the most important thing would be for everyone to recognize reality. Clearly, no gun zones or gun-free zones or this attitude that we can remove guns by legislating it, right? Clearly that's not working. So having people operate from reality would be number 1A, but we'll have that conversation somewhere else down the road. I don't want to make this a political broadcast. I want to talk about solutions today. So my number 1 solution would be to have teachers held responsible. Now, before you get upset with me, okay, I want to say that I recognize the enormous responsibility that teachers have. And I've had this conversation, kind of a debate with my wife and with other people about what is the responsibility of teachers. They're there to educate your children. They've kind of become the de facto babysitter. And now we're asking them to potentially arm themselves, potentially intercede between the kids and a potential mass shooter. And that sounds absolutely horrible. But if we're talking about operating from reality, the reality is that there are mass shootings. The reality is that there are mass shootings that happen at schools. So if these teachers are going to be the only adult in the room, there has to be some level of responsibility. Now, the conversation around arming teachers, I think that deserves a separate broadcast. So what I want to do is not necessarily say that they're responsible for being armed, responsible for interceding in between the kids and the mass shooter, but they do have a responsibility to those kids' safety. It's being reported that a teacher potentially, or allegedly rather, propped open a back door. Guys, listen, if we're talking about hardening schools, there cannot be any breaches. There cannot be any lapses in judgment, because the lapse in judgment to open that door. Schools are supposed to be locked down, to the best of my knowledge, during school hours, right? That lapse in judgment, it wasn't the cause of what happened, but it contributed to what happened. And there has to be some responsibility, some culpability. So the first thing that I would do is I would make any breach, any lapse in judgment in terms of the security of the school, that would be a terminating offense. If you do something throughout the school day that is a breach of safety, that is something that is punishable all the way up to termination. There's not a situation where you can use your union to back you or to get you out of the situation. That is such an egregious lapse in judgment that it could cost you your job and it could cost you your pension. It has to be something that is so important that the teachers do not allow themselves to make the mistake that was made on Tuesday. That would be number one. Number two would be putting sensors on all the doors. Now, I used to work at a county prison in Pennsylvania. I worked at a state prison, and part of your rotation was to work the central control board. The central control board had, green and red lights that were next to each labeled door throughout the facility. Not just the doors, but the sally ports. The sally ports are the entry and exit points before you actually get to the doors, right? Someone had to physically buzz you in, someone had to physically buzz you out, and if any door was left open or propped, it would show red on the central board. That is something that is super easy and could be instituted in a school tomorrow. Currently, right now, I use a Vivid home security system. I have window sensors, I have brake sensors, I have smoke detectors, I have flood detectors, I have door sensors, all of this stuff, right, on my home. This is something that could be instituted tomorrow that would help to harden that target. And really, there's no reason why that hasn't potentially been done. Number three, and this is going to take some planning, some infrastructure. And if only we had, say $40 billion worth of money that we could utilize to harden up our schools, we could utilize to create infrastructure for security with our schools. If only we had $40 billion in this country that could go to our American citizens. But I wonder, where did that $40 billion go last week? But again, this is not a political conversation, right? One of the things that I think that we could do that would really help is to build safe rooms, right? A separate area that can hold, let's say you have 20 kids to a class, 25 kids to a class, that can hold that number, that is in an accessible area from the inside of the room. Because listen, they've done things to harden the classrooms themselves. They have, bulletproof doors or hardened doors or steel doors. They have things to, lock the door at the hinge point to make sure they can't be kicked in. And all of this stuff is great, assuming that the shooter is not in the room with you, right? So creating safe rooms that are accessible by the kids, accessible by the teachers, in the instance that there's an active shooter, that to me would also be something that could be done that would help mitigate and potentially protect kids in situations like this. Number four, and this might be a little bit controversial, is that there needs to be a duty to act for police officers. Are we ready to have the conversation about police in the United States? Are we ready to have a conversation about what the police do, what their purpose is, what purpose they serve? Are we ready? Are we ready to attack the myth that the police are the end-all be-all in terms of protecting you and saving you? Many people in this country, they don't want to operate from reality. They don't want to talk about the very reality that when this shit hits the fan, the cops are not going to be there. They simply can't. They're human. They're not going to be there in that moment. And when they get there, they have to assess the situation, and not only tactically or strategically assess the situation, but they're human. That human element of maybe not wanting to get involved, potentially being fearful for their own life, thinking about their own families, their own kids. And the Supreme Court has ruled that police officers are under no obligation. They have no duty to act to save your life. That to me is something that needs to be addressed. If we are going to pay municipal, city, state police officers, if we're going to pay them, we're going to give them pensions out of our tax dollars, should there be a mandate that they absolutely under no circumstances have to act, that what happened on Tuesday is unacceptable? This is a conversation that needs to be had. More people smarter than I are going to have to come to the table and have this conversation and readdress the duty to act and how that applies, specifically how that applies to children within our school system. Okay. And number 5 would be adding armed guards. The police departments across the country are talking about how short they are staff-wise. They're talking about the defund movement, how they can't get good people, how most people, post, say, 2009, 2010, the idea of being a police officer, the lack of respect, the lack of appreciation, the constant scrutiny, and we can debate whether or not any of that is warranted or not, but it is driving people away from policing. However, private security is increasing. It's on the uptick. It's a great career option. And many people, if you have too many tattoos, if you have maybe some discriminating factors that can't get you on the force, that doesn't mean that these people who, for whatever reason, are working in security and not currently in law enforcement, it doesn't mean they don't serve a purpose. We have so many veterans that come back and all they know, people that have spent 10, 15, 20 years in the military, and all they know is watching a post, holding down a door, making sure that no one breaches a certain area or crosses a certain line, checking IDs. So many people that have a security mindset from the military. Using armed guards and using security is a great way to mitigate the number of people that it would take to have someone at every single school. Guys, I think that is something that should be addressed. It should be looked into. And again, we just sent $40 billion to the Ukraine. How much of that would it have taken to just put someone there? Whose responsibility it is to check those doors, to make sure that the halls are secure, to make that phone call to the police to where the children that are involved in that situation aren't the ones that are having to do that. These are 5 things that I think that we could do with relative ease in this country right now that would help harden that target and not necessarily eradicate or eliminate the possibility of a mass shooting at the school, but it would definitely help to lower it and to mitigate it. And I think at the end of the day, we owe it. We owe it to our country, and we damn sure owe it to these children. And we owe it to the legacy of the people that died on Tuesday to do something. Guys, listen, I appreciate your comments on the thread on this question. I looked at all of them. I've tried to respond to all of them. I appreciate you guys having an active role here on this channel. And I want to hear what you think about my 5 tips. I want you to critique them. I want to get your feedback. I want to hear from you guys. So please make sure that you drop some comments below and share with me what you think. Guys, as always, I appreciate you being here. You're so special to me. And guys, listen, you kick ass. I want you to know that. I respect you. I appreciate you. And as always, I want you to go out there. I want you to be careful. I want you to watch your 6. And I want you to be great. Okay? Be great.